Welcome back, and today we're looking at the Benchmade Mini Claymore. I liked the look of the full-size Claymore, but it didn't really do it for me because I didn't really need a big side opening automatic like that. It's not big, but whenever they announced this one, I thought this would be more my size range. It's a more medium-sized knife at 7.19 inches, and it's got a 3-inch blade, so nothing crazy or anything. And your grip area from here to here is only 3.36 inches. So if you have large, extra large hands, this one is probably be too small for you, but thankfully they do make the full size Claymore also. One thing that shocked me right off the back with this knife is how thin the blade stock is at 0.09 and how thinly ground this knife was. Mine's coming in around 15 to 16 thousandths behind the edge, and that coupled with that thin blade stock, this thing should be a slicing machine. I know a lot of people were kind of turned off because it's in D2 steel, but this is CPM D2 steel, which is a much different steel. It has a much finer grain structure, and it takes a very wicked edge. And I've already had experience with Benchmade D2 with my old Benchmade bone collector back in the day, and that thing performed outstanding. So I had to see if it still performed as good as I, remembered compared to other steels that I've tested in the past. This one has a nice drop point blade, very nice looking. You have a very needle light point right there for piercing into some potato chips or cereal bags or boxes, whatever. You have a perfectly executed sharpening choil that should give you a ton of sharpening light before it starts to widen up back here. No jimping, but I didn't really find a need for it. You got a nice flat spot to put your thumb, and you do have two like semi guards right here with jimping on the actual scales if you were doing some kind of thrusting motion, but that would be more suited for maybe the bigger one because, choke back like that, I could barely get a 4-finger grip. So once again, not my intended purpose. For me, I'm testing this and I'm reviewing it as an EDC knife. Got a nice top swedge up here. I'm not sure what the coating is. I think it's like a PVD coating or something. I will say it did hold up well. It is, a little bit rougher, and we'll talk about that during the testing, but got a nice high flat grind on here. Not super high, but, comes down, like I said, fairly thin. It's going to thicken up, rather quickly once you start sharpening it, but, for now, as long as you keep a nice sharp edge on it, this thing should perform outstanding, especially with that 0.09 inch stock. Well, enough talk. Let's see what their CPM D2 can do. Knife came with a very sharp edge out of box, and it had a light of bite to it. My absolute favorite edge to use. It was very sharp, where it could cut phone book paper while still grabbing that skin to your fingers if you did the 3-finger test to it. So excellent edge on this knife, and it's blasting through the cardboard so well that I decided to throw in 2 more strips of the longer pieces of cardboard that I had, these 2 more extra right here, because it was just slicing so well. And I want to show how well their CPM D2 can perform. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe they rock well it to like 63 to 64 or somewhere in that area, which would explain a lot. And I'll check the edge once we're done with all the testing, see if there's any kind of chipping on the edge or anything like that. But I've had nothing but good experience with it. I'm hoping this one will do as well as my Benchmade bone collector I had back in the day, because that thing would slice and slice like nobody's business. Man, once again, that toothy edge was wanting to bite into this piece of birch very quickly. I made some fine curls in the beginning, but then I really wanted to test the ergos, because this is a black glass knife, so they got all kinds of jimping on the FRN that I kind of thought would be uncomfortable, but I didn't notice any, major hot spots or anything. I could feel the jimping, and of course I would have probably rather not be there, but that said, it was comfortable. You have contoured scales. They fill out the hand nicely. The clip stayed out of the way of my palm, and I was able to get a lot of force into the into the wood. I was actually kind of shocked. Made a quick tent stake in the beginning, and now just, seeing what kind of finer work I could do. That drop point works excellent for this type of stuff. I could have done this all day long, no problem whatsoever. Now we move to the 1/2 inch twisted sisal rope, and this is one place that is really, that edge is really going to shine with that toothiness. Bites into the rope very fast, very effectively, and that drop point blade is excellent for doing this type of cutting on a flat cutting surface because you have that belly to work with. And man, oh man, was it performing nicely. Push cutting, I think pretty much every one of the cuts is pretty much a push cut. Little to no effort, especially being that it's a well ground, good geometry on that edge, and its thin blade stock is passing through this like nobody's business. And I kind of figured that it would do excellent, so I cut a little bit longer piece of rope on this one. We ended up getting through 65 cuts, and I, without a doubt, could have done a lot more. And if I have time at the end, I'll try to add some more clips of me doing more of this type of cutting, but we'll have to wait and see how much time the actual review takes. But yeah, definitely impressed so far. We'll see how the edges is for the last portion of the testing, but if I had to take a guess, it's going to do just fine. One thing that I did notice while doing this type of cutting, when I'm in that pinch grip and I'm pushing down, that hump on the top of the scales was a little bit uncomfortable just with the way I hold it. Now doing stuff like that with the pointer finger is super easy, especially with an excellent edge. It's blasting through all the material. Up until I get to this thicker tubing, I will say the coating did cause a little bit of drag, but once I got it going, it went through it very, very nicely. Corner cardboard, no problem whatsoever, and I'm blown away right here. Whenever I did the first cut of that denim and how aggressive that edge still is, I was absolutely blown away, and we're going to test it once we're finished. We'll see how that edge still is. I think it's going to be pretty darn good, though. All right, now let's test that edge. I just felt it. It still feels great. Yeah. Very, very nice. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I thought that performed outstanding. I tested 5 other knives the day I tested this one. 2 of them in M390, 1 in S35 VN, and the other one was 154 CM. And this one blew them all out of the water. All of them. So I wouldn't be too frightened away because of CPM D2. Like I said, Benchmade's been doing it for a long time, and at one point it was their super steel. They know what they're doing with it, and like I said, if I had to take a wild guess, it's Rockwell pretty high. I couldn't find that. I should have checked on their site. If I remember to look, I will put it up here if I find that information out for y'all. Now let's check out the action. This is a side opening automatic. It does have a safety switch right there. Red for fire and black for safety. So you can, as you can see, it's kind of like a OT out the front switch. It pyramids up there. It's got some nice grip to it. I didn't find myself accidentally actuating it whenever I didn't want to. You have some knurling on that button, and you have a recessed area so you don't accidentally deploy it if you don't want to. But this thing comes out nice and fast. That's something I'm happy to see because I have a few other Benchmade autos or button autos, and several of those had very weak snap to them. So it's really awesome to see that nice snappy action on this little one. I also didn't have any problems with it overstriking to where, what I'm saying is where it snaps open too fast and then it doesn't lock up. I never had that issue with this one. Lock up and down, I can kind of muster, a little bit of wiggle, but that's usually expected with these plunge lock autos, at least pretty much all the ones I have. It does, let's see if I can show you all this. It does have that I think it's an octagonal shaped stop pin. So if you start getting blade play, you can twist it. Go to the handle scale area. Like I said, in the testing, the only kind of issues I had whenever doing the testing with any kind of hot spot per se is whenever I was doing these push cuts into the rope, this hump right here and that jimping was kind of pushing into the palm of my hand, and it made it a little uncomfortable. But other than that, it was comfortable to use the entire time, and I was kind of shocked, because it's got jimping here, jimping on top right there and right here, because this is a black class, which is their tactical class of knives. But like I said, I thought it was more than adequate in the ergonomics and comfort department. Now, these are FRN scales. It does lighten up the knife a good bit, and it has a good bit of texture. You got texture here, and like I said, all the jimping around. Looks like some braille right here. I'm not sure what that says. U.S. manufactured. You have the deep carry, tip up, left or right-handed. That's the bug out clip, and it works pretty well. Now, it is sitting above the scales on mine. As you can see, it's not touching, and that's a pretty decent thing when I was wearing jeans, because it still held it in fine. But whenever I'm wearing my thinner shorts, which that's kind of why I wanted this knife, it didn't hold it that well, because it's sitting off the scales on mine. Something that I can easily fix. I can turn the clip around and bend it down some. So something I probably will do after the video. The blade centering on mine is pretty darn close. It looks like it might be off to the right just a little bit, but I did test this knife, and it could have went off after that. I'm not sure. Probably could easily fix that with a little bit of tightening. Close it up. Your hardware is a T8 on the pivot, and unfortunately all the rest of the screws, including the clip screws, are all T6. I would have loved to see them all T8. But I haven't had any issues taking apart any of my Benchmades and the screws stripping out. So knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen to me. You have an FRN backspacer that sits flush except for the jimping area right there. You have a large lanyard hole for anybody who likes to put lanyards in their knives. It should be able to fit your 550 rather easily. Along with the FRN and the contouring, they also did lightning pockets inside the FRN to try to lighten it up as much as possible. You have that little bitty stainless inserts on both sides to house, I guess, all the mechanism and stuff right here. But let's check out the weight on this. It feels pretty darn light. First in grams at 71, let's call it 72 grams, or 2.539 ounces. Nice. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Arcform Slimfoot Auto and the ProTech PT Plus. The Slimfoot is just a hair longer, and the PT Plus is a hair shorter. Next we have the Ontario Rat Model 2 and the ProTech SBR. Lastly, we have the Spyderco Power 3 and the Ho Ritter RSK Mini. It's almost identical in size to the Power 3. It's a little bit bigger than the Mini RSK. Now, for my nitpicks complaints, the only really one that I have is, of course, the price tag at $207 for this knife with FRN scales is pretty steep. Now, it is USA made, and the quality's there, and hopefully y'all have seen that the CPM D2 quality is there, way better than most M390 you get. So, the performance, yeah, I can definitely recommend it in the performance aspect. But as an FRN automatic knife, I think this would have been way better at, say, 150, maybe 170. But, if the FRN is not a problem, if you're not worried about that and the price tag's okay, but you were just worried about the D2, then I'd say, yeah, go ahead and pick it up. You'll love it. I still like the knife a lot. But, it's hard to recommend something at this price tag. It has to have a lot of things, right. And, even though there's not much wrong on the knife, at least in my eyes, I still think the FRN at over $200 is just very, very steep. So I'd love to hear y'all thoughts about it. Let me know your experience with their CPM D2. And, yeah. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Hi.